Greetings. Welcome to the Citizen Online. I'm here today with the Nordic countries' envoys to Tanzania. That is Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. These are the ambassadors. Karibu sana. We're going to have a dialogue. We're going to talk about the relations between Nordic countries and the Tanzanian government. Well, Karibu sana. To start it all off, I would like a brief introduction. Maybe if we can start with you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Anders Sjöberg. I'm the Swedish ambassador to Tanzania since 2018. I arrived here in September 2018. But I'm not a newcomer to Tanzania. My very first visit was here in 1990 when I had a brief stint here in Tanzania.
Okay, perfect. Madam?
My name is Elisabeth Jakobsen. I'm the Norwegian ambassador. I came at the same time as Anders, maybe 1 or 2 days before you,
yes,
I think,
okay.
In 2018. And I also have visited Tanzania many years ago when I was a student. And I came here to visit some of the development projects that Norway funded. This was back in 84. So I've seen a lot of changes in Tanzania.
Karibu sana.
Hi, thank
Hello.
you. I'm Mette Dissing-Spender, the ambassador of Denmark to Tanzania. I arrived a year after my two colleagues here. I arrived in August 2019. First time in Tanzania, first post in Africa.
Okay, so how are you finding it so far?
I'm enjoying it so far, but it's been an interesting couple of months, I'd say. Arriving, getting settled, then Covid, and now we're hopefully on the other side, and we'll see where we go from here.
Okay, so let's get right to it. Now, Nordic countries and Tanzania have maintained a historical background of good relations over the years. What would you say cements this relation? Because it cuts across different sectors, but what would you say cements it all?
I would say that we've had very long historic good relations, but they have also been very friendly, and they've been characterized by equal partnership, mutual understanding, trust, and confidence. And I think the key word is trust. So we have been able to build up a very good relationship with Tanzania, and we've had wide cooperation, working with all stakeholders in society, like government, private sector, civil society, faith-based organizations, and academia. And we've done this in a very holistic perspective.
Okay, perfect. Now, as you understand, so the Citizen is all about business. That's what people know us for. Now, I would like to get to the business questions. Specifically, in 2020, a business survey that was conducted by the Nordic countries, trying to have a view of how companies operate in Tanzania, Nordic companies, and their relation and how they're able to operate in Tanzania. Now, the results weren't quite favorable. Many challenges were highlighted. Now, can you tell us what prompted that survey to begin with? Because it was the first one, but then of course you've been operating in Tanzania for many years. But it's just like 2 years ago you decided to do a business survey. What prompted that survey?
Well, we as embassies, and I would say in particular Nordic embassies, we try to engage with the business community, and we have a wide variety of businesses here represented over four different countries. And we try to engage with them. We try to create platforms where business people can also meet with government representatives to exchange ideas. So we had an exchange like that back in May 2019, and the business community identified a range of topics that they saw as challenges or issues. So since we are also very much in touch with one of the prominent think tanks here, RIPOA, they were actually hosting that business seminar. We agreed on doing the very first Nordic business climate survey, so to see what are the issues, both the opportunities and challenges that the Nordic companies face in Tanzania. So we commissioned RIPOA to conduct that survey. It was ready 1 year later, and I think around 135 companies participated in that survey, so it was a fairly broad range of companies. What we noted is that most of these companies, they have been investing here for a very long time, many for several decades. You can take the big truck maker, for instance, Scania. They have been here since the 70s, a very well-known brand when you travel around Tanzania. So, and they also felt that they are long-term investors. They're not here for the short buck, so they want to have a conducive business climate. So the issues didn't come out as very surprising, but you know, they talked about work permits, about tax-related issues. We have a few companies also in Zanzibar. They talked about trade barriers between Zanzibar and the mainland. So these were the kind of issues that they were highlighting in this report. So last night we had a very exciting, interesting exchange between the business community and the Honorable Minister for Industry and Trade, Kombo. So he came here, and we had a very long session with him where he shared his views, but also interacted in a very energetic and constructive way with the business community. And I think they got a lot of response to the issues that were raised in the report, but also from the floor here yesterday. So I think we all left that meeting very energized and inspired.
Okay. So did the report offer any recommendations from the Nordic countries? Did you offer any recommendations to the government on addressing some of the challenges?
Well, we recommended the government to look into these main challenges regarding tax administration, the way tax is being collected, also the permits for work and for immigration, and some other issues related to skills development, so that there is the relevant competence for businesses when they start up and want to recruit the Tanzanians. So we came with some recommendations, but we got to learn over the last week that it's not only the Nordic businesses that have these concerns. They are also the same for domestic businesses, and they are also shared by many of the ministers in the cabinet. So we understood that these are more common concerns, and we were very pleased to hear the Minister for Trade and Industry's commitment that they are working to rectify the situation.
Yeah, indeed. And I think to start with, they're reviewing 22 laws under the Trade and Investment, the ministry itself. Now, speaking about the review of these different legislations, are there any specific legislations that concern businesses that operate here? Are there any specific legislations that you can point out, or even specific clauses in the legislations that you want to be amended?
Perhaps I can come in. I think maybe it's not for us to look into specific laws. I think for us it's actually the whole investment climate that we would like to have looked into by government. And I think we saw yesterday that there is a very clear recognition by government that Tanzania is not alone in the world, that Tanzania is part of an international competition. So if you want investments, it's not only about Tanzanian issues, it's about comparing yourself to your immediate neighbors or to others that would compete for the same business that you're competing for. So I think we discussed issues as sort of more generic issues in society, rule of law, predictability in legislation and in administration and in tax collection, and also trust, that and I think we also hear recent days from government representatives that there is a really clear recognition that if you don't have trust from the private sector towards the government, and from the government towards the private sector, you can't make this work. Part of the Nordic Week has really been to talk about how to create inclusive, sustainable growth in Tanzania.
Yes.
We've talked about this, the three parts in life that need to work together. You need the government, you need the market, and you need the community to all pull in the same direction, and you need them to work together in the best way possible. And that is really difficult. And it's a balance, and I think our countries have been struggling with the balance ever since the beginning of time, and it's not the same balance for every country, it's not the same balance at every point in time. But it's a really big discussion getting the business climate right, and it's about a lot more than specific business legislation. If I can answer your question.
But we would like to see that the government tries to clarify the regulatory role of government.
Okay.
And then leave space for private sector to be the engine of growth, as you often talk about in speeches. So there is a division of labor that we would like to see throughout the legal framework. And as my colleague also said, to create a stable and predictable framework for business. What we learned yesterday was that one thing is the law, but it's also important to implement. So
Exactly.
many things are in the implementation, not only in the laws.
Okay. So now we understand that the engagement of Nordic countries here in Tanzania, it goes beyond business. It's a whole lot of other areas that you're also involved in. Now, when it comes to investment specifically, as representatives of your countries here, do you provide an assessment of how the terrain is or how the environment is for potential investors? Do you tell them that, if you want to invest in Tanzania, these are the best areas to do so before they come and invest? Because whenever there is a fallout, definitely the embassy will have to be involved. You have to engage with the government. Now, do you provide an assessment beforehand? Do you look at the environment before anyone comes to invest and then give them like a guideline?
What we, I always try to see ourselves like, this very old time switchboard operators that you see in old movies. So, I mean, we are here to connect the dots. So if someone, for instance, is interested in the mining sector, we are trying to connect them with the responsible authorities. We might send them, tips and tricks how to reach out, and also to reach out to their peers in the sector. And that was also something that came out yesterday from the Honorable Minister. He said that the best ambassadors for Tanzania are actually the businessmen themselves.
Yes.
Of course, we play a role here, but to hear from someone who is involved in the telecom or mining or agricultural sector that please come and invest in Tanzania. This is a market where you have immense opportunities. That is the best marketing and advice the potential investor who would come here and risk his money could get. So that's sort of the. But then of course we have our business agencies that are also trying to guide companies to come in here. And
you have business agencies here?
Yeah, we have. Ours is in Business Sweden. They are in Nairobi. But of course, they come here very frequently.
Okay.
We had other colleagues here yesterday.
From Nairobi, the Norwegian Business Promotion Company or facilitating organization is in Nairobi. We have other organizations in Norway trying to reach out. Sometimes they come on visits. So our role is more to inform about the general business environment. And now it's easy because there is a move to improve the business environment. And generally our role is also to open some doors and connect people with the right counterparts here. But businesses, we can't really control.
Indeed.
Businesses, they come and they invest when they see opportunities. And they hear from other businesses.
From other businesses, exactly.
So if there are opportunities and the businesses who are here succeed, then there will be more businesses.
Okay.
It's really the best advertising, as you would say. But I think it's also fair to say that we've heard from the Tanzanian government, probably long before I came, that we should be the promoters of investments in Tanzania.
Indeed.
But it's also clear for us to advise our respective companies and businesses, so we would have to provide an honest picture of what we see. And it has been tough for a while. And we've seen from our side, certainly, we've seen businesses that's been here for a very long time that had to close shop because they couldn't make ends meet for many reasons. So it goes without saying that we would be honest reporters when asked from our compatriots back home. And as you said, Elizabeth, it's looking bright, and it's always more fun to provide good news, and that's certainly where we hope and think and expect that we'll be going shortly.
Indeed, now there is a noticeable level of optimism that things will get better moving forward regarding the business environment and other relations. But I do understand that the government at times can promise to work on something, but then it might take a long time. And when it comes to businesses, the longer it takes, the more these investors become frustrated and decide to leave. Now, as ambassadors, is there any way that you would advise the government to fast track this process of implementing these different reforms that are currently undergoing?
And yesterday we had such a good dialogue with the Minister for Trade and Industry, where we understood that he understands our concerns. And we had sort of a meeting of minds opportunity, where it's important for investors who came here last night and met the minister to understand that the government also sees their challenges and that they are willing to do something about it. That is a very big first step. We know that it takes time to reorganize and change the attitudes and mindsets and the implementation of certain laws or even change laws. But if the progress is in the right direction, if there is a positive movement, there will be more patients, and some more will stay, and we hope more will come.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be fair to say also that to be honest, there's been a discussion for quite a number of years of how to improve the business climate. We saw the blueprint, the plan to implement it.
Yes.
A lot of words. So it would also be fair to say that I think businesses are expecting to see deeds also, to see actual change. But we need patience, and I think businesses are also aware that it doesn't change overnight.
Overnight, exactly.
And I could also add, I mean, if you look, there's a worldwide global index called the Ease of Doing Business by the World Bank, and what came out in our study was very similar to what comes out in the Ease of Doing Business. So I mean, and they have very clear and concrete indicators. So if you want to climb in that index, and of course that's something that investors look at, you know. So I mean, they're going to risk their money somewhere on the planet, and of course it's a very easy thing to look at that index. So I think my hope is that Tanzania now will start climbing in that index.
Okay. So, if I may ask, what is your view of the current regime and the first female president that the country has ever had, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan? What is your view of her current leadership? How she started, of course, it's only a couple of months since she came into power. So, what would you say is your view of the government, the current government?
Well, we are, we see a lot of hope, we see a lot of energy coming into the new administration. We hear a lot of positive messaging. We have also been engaging with the new Minister for Foreign Affairs, and she has said that one of her tasks is to strengthen and develop the relations with their international relations in Tanzania. And of course, that is something that is very important for us as diplomats to hear that message. And we also see, I would say in general, that we are, we have entered into very, constructive dialogue with not only with the Foreign Affairs Ministry, but also with a range of other line ministries. And we keep on referring back to this Industry and Trade Ministry that we met yesterday, but, also other Minister for Communication, Information, etc., etc. So we see across the board that there is a strong engagement from the government, which is and we believe in dialogue. We need to dialogue, and we need to see where we can work together. And there are a lot of constructive openings right now.
Okay.
I think we have been struck by the very positive signals coming from the new president and her very active work over the last 2 months. She has not rested. We are pleased that she signaled more openness, transparency and accountability, and that she focused very early on more democratic freedoms and rule of law. We're also pleased that she talked about business environment very early, and she said that something needs to be happening very quickly, not to kill businesses, particularly when it comes to tax collection, and to create a more conducive business environment. And she has also strengthened Tanzania's engagement, not only with the neighboring countries, but also with the international community in general, and with multilateral organizations, both UN and IFI. So I think these are very positive signals.
Yes.
Maybe to add a little bit on that, I think she's also reaching out domestically. So I think that there are some issues to resolve after also a difficult political period in Tanzania. Yeah. So she's reached out to faith-based organizations, I think to opposition parties to get this dialogue going again. We see openings towards civil society, towards press. So I think that's really something that we would think would benefit Tanzania in its own development. If you open up for dialogue, we would be convinced that that is actually leading the country in a good direction. So there's that. And then it's also interesting for us, I think, coming from countries that are used to female leadership. So for us, it's good when it's a woman that's in the lead, but it's not a surprise, and it's not. We've heard the president talk about that her brain is functioning as well as any man's brain, and so forth. And it's interesting to follow from the sidelines that there is this extra dimension to it in Tanzania, because nobody was expecting a female president. And it would be very interesting to follow how that is brought into play. But I guess so far we're just seeing a very convincing leader that seems to be doing a lot of good things.
We are pleased to work with her, and we also notice she wants coordination.
Yes.
So she wants her whole cabinet team to follow up and implement what she has signaled. And I think we trust that everybody will be part of it.
Indeed. So maybe perhaps is there an area or something specific that you might recommend the government to look into that hasn't been looked into? Anything of concern?
I think what she has been signaling very positively is, to open up for media, open up for the freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. All these basic human rights, civic rights are something that is very close to the heart of the Nordics and many other countries, and Tanzania as well. So I think bringing Tanzania back into that space where people can express themselves freely will contribute not only to bringing out the entrepreneurs, but also to have more of a creative society where people can speak their mind.
Okay. So let's talk about COVID-19. Do you think that the Tanzanian government is currently handling the situation in the right way? Now, we saw that there was a report that was presented to the president by the special committee that was commissioned by Her Excellency to do some research on the steps that the country should take moving forward with regards to how we're going to combat COVID-19. Now, are you, as the Nordic representatives, satisfied with the way the government is handling the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think it's fair to. I think it's no secret that we had hoped things would go differently for a very long time, but we've now seen 19 recommendations from the National Task Force.
Yes.
We are very impressed with the quality of recommendations and the extent of the recommendations, and we are assuming and convinced that the government is now looking into the recommendations and will start implementing them. They seem to be very much aligned with I guess the mainstream approach to COVID around the world, and it's clear that for Tanzania it needs to be addressed for many reasons. Personally, I'm quite hopeful that things will now begin to move in that direction.
So, is Tanzania still among the top 10 countries for long-term development, for Norway, or is that a historical view? Is this still the case as we speak?
It's still a partner country, but it doesn't mean that it gets the most money.
Okay.
So it's not top 10 in terms of money funds anymore, but it is still our partner.
Anymore? What do you mean by anymore?
It used to be one of the countries that received most.
Okay.
But there are other more fragile countries that need more funds than Tanzania. And Tanzania has now even achieved lower middle income country. So we don't think it's only the money that is of immediate need for Tanzania. It's also our collaboration on many political and technical issues like climate change and so on.
Okay, so is that the way you assess your relationship between developing countries, that when they reach a certain level, then you focus on another country that's in need of more assistance?
It's not automatic, but it evolves over time.
Oh, okay. Great. So we move on to Denmark.
Denmark is ready.
So I would like to first understand the overall relation between Denmark and the Tanzanian government with regards to economic activities that you're engaged in the country. Can you tell us about the specific areas that are of interest and how they've been evolving over the years?
So I think I'll spare you the repetition. I think the overall relation between Denmark and Tanzania is very similar.
Okay.
So it's across the board. It's been here forever. It's been here since before independence. It's developed over time. I think when it comes to development cooperation, we've been in almost any sector you can think of. Currently, we are in 4 main areas. We are in what we call the macroeconomics, but I think Elizabeth introduced it better. In enabling Tanzania to better generate its own resources. We are in some of the same programs, tax modernization program, public financial management program, and that's sort of engaging with the Tanzanian government, helping or assisting or sharing experiences as to how Tanzania can better mobilize money for its own public budget. So that's one part of it. Another significant part is that we are engaging in the health sector, both with the government. There is something called the Health Basket Fund that we support along with other development partners that actually funds clinics all across the country. So so that's a government cooperation, but we also have public-private partnerships. So we support private organizations that deliver health or engage on health in Tanzania. Then the third leg of our current development in Tanzania is that we do something we call business development, but it's mostly focused on the agricultural sector.
Yeah.
Work across the board on semi-commercial issues, but also enabling financing and so forth. Basically trying to build access to markets, access to finance from the very low end, so lifting from below. And then the final and very important leg also is good governance and human rights, where we both work with Parliament, we work with the Human Rights Institution, the STRAG, and then we support both baskets that support small civil society organizations, and we support some civil society organizations directly. And I think this last leg is very important in order to also help Tanzania and Tanzania's government to sort of keep itself in check. They work a lot of accountability, they work a lot on expressing the need for civic space, for democratic space, for press freedom. So that's an important bit of it. So that's our current development framework composition. But I think, as is the case for Norway and Sweden, we also support through multilateral organizations on the development side, and we have, I think all of us, civil society organizations in our own countries that also work in Tanzania. And we have the commercial, the people-to-people,
yes.
the political discussion. So it's across the board cooperation, and it's a really good, long-standing, all-weather relationship, I would say.
Okay, so now if I'm to delve a little bit on the good governance, rule of law, and respect for human rights, in 2020, during the general election, we all know what happened in Tanzania. We all know the grievances that your opposition raised with regards to the transparency or lack thereof during the election processes. Since that's one of the areas that you're keen on, what was your view, or what is your view now with regards to what transpired during the 2020 general election? Did you have any reservations? If so, was there any way that those reservations were raised? Did you try to sort of ask for the government to be more accountable? Can you tell us about that? Because, it's all part of democracy, it's good governance.
It's true. So that's a difficult question. I think we were all very clear around the elections as to some of the shortcomings we saw. We weren't convinced that they were free and credible. We invested in some oversight. I think some of us, even not me personally, but some of us participated in what we call the diplomatic watch and tried to ourselves experience how things went on at the polling stations. And it's going to be interesting to see how the new government relates to that. I think we would wish for more development in this part, and that maybe we would hope to see more independence in the institutions that were monitoring the elections, and that better space also for the opposition to actually campaign would be allowed going forward. I think it's no secret that we were hoping for something different from what we saw in October 2020.
Perfect. Well, it's interesting to know about, how the Nordic countries are helping Tanzania, take a leap in terms of, developing in different sectors. I would like to talk about a different subject now, the Nordic Week, which unfortunately I thought was to happen next week. So can we talk about the whole concept of Nordic Week? What does it entail?
Yeah, no, this year we have been focusing. So it's every week around this time of the year. So it's end of May, early June. So that's when we have the Nordic Week, and it sort of coincides with the Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish national days. Finland is in another time of the year, the 6th of December. But we thought it makes sense for the four of us to join hands around this time of the year. and display, both the relations that we have with Tanzania, but also to promote our ideas, our values, our businesses, and so forth. So this year we have been focusing quite a lot on what we also explained in a Citizen article that we contributed last Friday, namely, how do you find a good balance between the market, the state, and the community? So on Monday we had a very interesting symposium together with the ESRF. We hosted that symposium where we actually dwelled into this particular area, and we decided to focus on two themes. So we looked at digital transformation. So what's the role of the state, what's the role of the market, and what's the role of the community to enter into that digital transformation, and that entails everything from fourth industrial revolution to get online education, e-health, and so forth.
I am really overwhelmed by everything that's happening, all the development projects, and the future really is optimistic.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
So you were with me in Kogi Thompson, the Citizen Online. Until next time.